We'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 worst horror games.
Leon, get out of here! It's coming!
Shit!
For this list, we'll be looking at those games that fall flat in the night due to poor gameplay, laughable graphics, or lackluster scares. No need to tuck in the kids for these ones. The only nightmares will be us shuddering at the trade-in value on these titles. Number 10, Ju-On: The Grudge. A horror game that uses motion controls is one thing, but a horror game that's also based on a movie series? They wanted this one to fail, didn't they? We suppose that calling it motion controls is a bit unfair, since the only motion is using the Wiimote like a flashlight. Ooh, spooky. Even the movie's creator, Takeshi Shimizu, couldn't save this flop. A bare-bones story, bland environments, abysmal controls, outdated graphics. The only saving grace is that the game is pathetically short. We just hope that the grudge doesn't linger in our Wiis. Or is that the Ring? Whatever. Number 9, Night Trap.
Way to go, Control! I knew you could do it!
Yeah, that's definitely controversial enough to create the ESRB. This game practically bathes itself in ooey gooey cheese. The music, the Saved by the Bell-esque acting, the recycled animations of catching those Power Ranger rejects in traps. But you can only laugh at the obscurity for so long. After a while, you start to realize that the game is, well, super boring.
You can see it in his eyes.
And he's wearing sunglasses.
I mean, you can tell by his face.
The by-the-number story and click on this box gameplay is totally dull. Once you memorize the pattern, or look up the FAQ, you can beat the game faster than you can memorize the song. Don't try. Number 8, Resident Evil: Survivor.
What?
While shooting zombies is a core element to the Resident Evil franchise, turning it into what's supposed to be a fast-paced shooter just doesn't work. Resident Evil, or at least past Resident Evils, were about exploration, planning your kills carefully, and that slow feeling of dread when a corridor was just a bit too quiet. That's not how light gun shooters work, though we suppose this particular one didn't work that great to begin with, since the US version didn't have light gun support. This left us with an amnesiac protagonist moving at a snail's pace to shoot whatever appeared on screen, I guess? Number 7, Druna: Morbus Gradus.
Shasta, please. Leave me alone, I'm tired.
We're not saying that video games require graphic violence and sex. Well, okay, so we kinda are. But if your lead character is a woman like Druna, well, we don't expect a game like this.
It's gas! Help! Please!
The comic book series that surrounds our heroine here is the very definition of explicit. While its video game shies away from explicit material. That might have been okay if the game were actually okay.
No, it's better if I stay away.
Right off the bat though, the sensual, voluptuous, alluring Druna is kind of not any of those things, and that's not just from a look standpoint. That's from an interesting character standpoint.
Don't you move!
She's got a bloody plate!
No!
From there, it's just a grade A boredom fest of poorly designed monsters, standard horror environments, and death scenes that even the girls from Night Trap would laugh at. Number 6, Black Soul. In an age where we constantly mourn the loss of classic Resident Evils and Silent Hills, a gaming throwback to the titles that used to scare us should have been a horror lover's dream come true. Instead, we got this. The worst part is, you can see what they were trying to do, and that being said, the game should still look and sound better than crumpled paper on the wall. As it stands, the game is an eyesore to look at, and it fails to capture the magic of the titles it's trying so hard to pay homage to. Number 5, Friday the 13th. This feels like beating a dead horse, or should we say dead camp counselor. Yeah, I guess we deserve a Jason-style beating for that one, and that's exactly what happens if you dare play this awful game. Figuratively, of course. You're tasked with trying to rescue camp counselors, assuming you can even figure out what to do, where to go, or how to take on Jason in a series of impossible punch-out-like battles. This game should have been left to drown in the depths of Crystal Lake and take the scalding memory of LJN down with it. Number 4, The Letter. It would be rude to play a laugh track over this entry, but seriously, how did this even make it to the Nintendo eShop? Now, we'll have to admit, it was admirable of the developers to want to create a horror mystery title for the Wii U, especially since there's not much like that out there for the console. And you know what? It's admirable that they continued on after the failed Indiegogo campaign, but this, come on. This looks like a tech demo for Windows 95. To be fair, it is forgivingly cheap at only $2, but we'll save you the trouble. Spoiler alert, it was all a dream. The end. You're done. Number 3, The Walking Dead, Survival Instinct.
Sorry, brother.
With Telltale Games constantly hitting it out of the park, we were excited to see what the next Walking Dead video game could be, even if Telltale weren't behind this next title. So now, we'd rather have been eaten by a walker than deal with AI like this. This game could have, should have been a success, especially with it focusing on series favorite Daryl. What we got was a slopped together cash grab, and trust us, Walking Dead doesn't need to be this desperate for money. Thank goodness that Kojima and Norman Reedus are friends. Otherwise, this would be the game we'd have to associate with our beloved Walking Dead actor.
Evacuation procedures begin in 9 minutes.
Number 2, Amy.
Something's not right.
Dear future developers, if you decide to put escort missions in your game, just don't. Okay? Cool.
Dear God, what's happened here? Amy, stick close to me.
That may sound a bit harsh, but if you've played this game, you'll understand our strong hatred for bringing little girls from point A to point B, because that's basically the whole game.
Wait for me here, Amy. I'm going to go around, and I'll come back to you on the other side.
We will say that Amy has a somewhat interesting twist. You're protecting a child who's immune to the threat that you're protecting her from. However, this novel idea is quickly lost due to bad acting, poorly synced lip movements, and some of the most frustrating gameplay in horror, you know what, in any video game genre. Period.
The whole city has been contaminated. We're barricaded in the hospital, trying to figure this out.
Before we get to our number 1 pick, let's stir up some scares with these honorable mentions. Number 1, Alone in the Dark, 2008. Before Resident Evil, before Silent Hill, there was Alone in the Dark, a 1992 horror game that revolutionized the genre with its graphics, its story, and best of all, its frightening atmosphere, which admittedly doesn't look like much now, but back then, goosebumps. Fast forward to 2008, where we were subjected with what was supposed to be the grand return of this classic franchise. Seeing the decline of Resident Evil and Silent Hill was bad enough. But this? We waited 7 years for this?
This is not driving. This is murder.
You know, the road is not supposed to collapse.
This title was, sadly, only the beginning of the end, as 2015's Illumination put the final nail in what should have been a pristine survival horror coffin. Do you agree with our list?
We are facing difficult times.
Which horror video game kept you up at night with disappointment instead of fear? For more frightful top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
I rang the alarms, calling in the abomination.